I'd have to get off at Cheyenne too and hitch 90 miles to Denver. I was glad when the two Minnesota farm boys in the cab decided to stop in North Platte to eat. I wanted to have a look at them. They came out of the cab and smiled at us. "Piss call," said one. "Time to eat," said the other, but they were the only ones in the party who had money to buy food. We all shambled after them to a restaurant run by a whole bunch of women and sat around over hamburgers while they wrapped away enormous meals just like they were back in their mother's kitchen. They were brothers, and they were transporting farm machinery from Los Angeles to Minnesota and making good money at it. So on their trip to the coast, empty, they picked up everybody on the road. They'd done this about 5 times now. They were having a hell of a time, and they liked everything. They never stopped smiling. I tried to talk to them. Actually, it was kind of dumb attempt on my part to befriend the captains of our ship, and there was no reason to, because they treated the crew with equal respect, and the only response I got were 2 sunny smiles and large white corn-fed teeth. Everybody had joined them in the restaurant except the 2 hobo kids, Gene and his boy. When we all got back, they were still sitting in the truck, forlorn and disconsolate. And now the darkness was falling. The drivers had a smoke. I jumped at the chance to go buy a bottle of whiskey to keep warm in the rushing cold air of night, and they smiled when I told them, "Go ahead, hurry up." You can have a couple shots," I reassured them. "Oh no, we never drink. Go ahead." Montana Slim and the 2 high school boys wandered the streets of North Platte with me until I found a whiskey store. They chipped in some and Slim some, and I bought a 5th. Tall, sullen men watched us go by from false front buildings. The main street was lined with square box houses. There were immense vistas of the plains beyond every sad street, and I felt something different in the air in North Platte. I didn't know what it was. In 5 minutes I did. We got back on the truck and roared off, same speed. It got dark quickly. We all had a shot, and suddenly I looked, and the verdant farm fields of the South Platte began to disappear, and in their stead, so far as you couldn't see to the end of it, appeared long, flat wastelands of sage and sand. I was astounded. What in the hell is this?" I cried out to Slim. "This is the beginning of the rangelands, boy. Hand me another drink," said Slim. "Whoopee," yelled one of the high school boys. "Columbus so long. What would Sparky and the boys say if they was here? Yo!" The drivers had switched up front. The fresh brother was gunning the truck to the limit. The road changed too, humpy in the middle, with soft shoulders and a ditch on both sides about 4 feet deep so that the truck bounced and teetered from one side of the road to the other miraculously. Only when there are no cars coming the opposite way, of course. And I thought we would all take a somersault, but they were tremendous drivers. They swapped at the wheel all the way from Minnesota to Palmy, LA without stopping more than 10 minutes to eat. How that truck disposed of the Nebraska nub, the nub that sticks out over Colorado. And soon I realized I was actually at last over Colorado, though not officially in it, but actually looking southwest towards Denver, itself a few hundred miles away. I yelled for joy. We passed the bottle. The great blazing stars came out. The far receding sandhills got dim. I felt like an arrow that could shoot all the way, and suddenly Mississippi Gene turned to me from his cross-legged, patient reverie and opened his mouth and leaned close and said, "These plains put me in the mind of Texas." "Are you from Texas?" "No, sir. I'm from Greenville, Mississippi." And that was the way he said it. Where's that kid from? He got into some kind of trouble back in Mississippi, so I offered to help him out. The boy's never been out on his own, so I offered to help him some. I take care of him best I can. He's an only child. Although Gene was white, there was something of the wise old tired Negro in him, and something very much like Hunky, the New York dope addict, in him, but a railroad Hunky, traveling epic Hunky, crossing and recrossing the country every year, south in the winter and north in the summer, and only because he has no place he can stay without getting tired of it, because there's nowhere to go but everywhere, and keep rolling under the stars, generally the western stars. I've been to Ogden a couple times. If you want to ride onto Ogden, I got some friends over there we could hole up with. I'm going to Denver from Cheyenne. Hell, go straight through. You don't get a ride like this every day. This too was a tempting offer. What was in Ogden? What's Ogden? I said. It's a place where most of the boys pass through and always meet there. You're liable to see anybody there. In my early days, I'd been to sea with a tall, raw-boned fellow from Ruston, Louisiana called Big Slim Hubbard, William Holmes Hubbard, who was a hobo by choice. As a little boy, he'd seen a hobo come up to ask his mother for a piece of pie, and she had given it to him. And when that hobo went off down the road, the little boy said, "Ma, what is that fellow?" "Why, that's a hobo." "Ma, I want to be a hobo someday." "Shut your mouth, that's not for the likes of Hubbards." But he never forgot that day and grew up, and after a short spell playing football at LSU, he did become a hobo. Slim and I spent many nights telling stories and spitting tobacco juice in paper containers. There was something so indubitably reminiscent of Big Slim Hubbard and Mississippi Gene's demeanor that I came out and just said, "Do you happen to have met a fellow called Big Slim Hubbard somewhere?" And he said, "You mean the tall fellow with the big laugh?" "Well, yeah, that sounds like him. He came from Ruston, Louisiana." "That's right, Louisiana Slim. He's sometimes called that." "Yes, sir. I sure have met Big Slim." "And he used to work in the East Texas oil field?" "East Texas is right. Now he's punching cows." And that was exactly right. And still, I couldn't believe Gene could really have known Slim, whom I'd been looking for more or less years. "And he used to work in the tugboats in New York. You know about that?" "Well, I don't know about that. Well, I guess you only know him in the West." "I reckon I ain't never been to New York." "Well, damn me, I'm amazed you know him. I mean, this is a big country, yet I knew you must have known him." "Yes, sir, I know Big Slim pretty well. Always generous with his money, and when he's got some, I mean." "Mean tough fellow, though. I seen him flatten a policeman in the yards of Cheyenne one punch." That sounded like Big Slim. He was always practicing that one punch in the air. He looked like Jack Dempsey. Maybe. But a young Jack Dempsey who drank. "Damn," I yelled into the wind. And I had another shot. And by now I was feeling pretty good. Every shot was wiped away by the rushing wind of the open truck, wiped away of its bad effects, and the good effects sank in my stomach. "Cheyenne, here I come," I sang. "Denver, look out for your boy." Montana Slim, he turned to me, pointed at my shoes, and commented, "You reckon if you put them things on the ground, something will grow up?" Without cracking a smile, of course. And the other boys heard him and laughed, and they were the silliest shoes in America. I brought them along specifically because I didn't want my feet to sweat in the hot road for fear I'd develop another case of phlebitis. And except for the rain in Bear Mountain, they proved to be the best possible shoes for my journey, so I laughed with them, and they'd become pretty ragged now. The bits of colored leather stuck up like pieces of fresh pineapple, with my toes showing through. Well, we had another shot and laughed. As in a dream, we zoomed through small crossroad towns, smack out of the darkness, and passed through long lines of lounging harvest hands and cowboys in the night, and we're back out there. They watched us pass in one motion of the head, and we saw them slap their thighs for the continuing dark the other side of town. We were a funny-looking crew. A lot of men in this country at that time of the year. It was harvest time. The Dakota boys were fidgeting. "I think we'll get off the next piss call. Seems like there's a lot of work around here." "All you gotta do is move north when it's over here," counseled Montana Slim, "and just follow the harvest till you get to Canada." The boys nodded vaguely. They didn't take much stock in his advice. Meanwhile, the blonde young fugitive sat the same way. Every now and then, Gene leaned over from his Buddhistic trance over the rushing dark plains and said something tenderly in the boy's ear. The boy nodded. Gene was taking care of him. Even his moods and his fears, I wondered where the hell they would go and what they could do. They had no cigarettes. I squandered my pack on them, and I loved them so. They were grateful and gracious. They never asked. I kept offering. Montana Slim had his own, But he never passed the pack. We zoomed through another crossroads town, past another line of tall, lanky men in jeans, clustered in the dim light like moths in the desert, and returned to the tremendous darkness. And the stars overhead were as pure and bright because of the increasingly thin air as we mounted the high hill of the western plateau, about a foot a mile, so they say, and a mile a minute, pure clean air, and no trees obstructing any low-level stars anywhere.